to University Bedford, your one-stop shop for everything Universal Studios coming to Bedfordshire, UK. Today we're going to be doing another document deep dive into those planning documents. We're going to be looking at a couple of documents today. We're going to be looking at the air quality and the noise impact. So if either of those particular subjects or any subject in relation to the planning application is of interest to you, don't forget to subscribe and let's jump straight into it. So here we have the air quality report. This is report reference 2.8.0. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, we see the usual contents here. So we've got the assumptions used to inform the assessment, the engagement scope and study area, the methodology, the baseline conditions, the assessments and difficulties and uncertainties with the assessment summary. We're going to do as we normally do and jump to the difficulties and uncertainties page, because that's often where things get quite interesting. So let's scoot there. So here we go, difficulties and uncertainties. So this is going to be split into two sections. It's going to be both the operational impact and the construction impact of this development. So as Universal Studios is being constructed near Bedford, what will the likely impact be on air quality and what will it be when the park is open? So, difficulties and uncertainties. This section sets out the difficulties and uncertainties experienced in undertaking the air quality assessment that were considered when reporting on the impacts and effects of the proposed development. For assumptions used to inform the assessment, please refer to section 0. Fine. Now, ADMS roads. For the assessment of operational phase impacts, there are uncertainties associated with both measured and predicted concentrations. We've looked at the traffic before. The ADMS roads model software used in this assessment relies on input data, such as predicted traffic flows, which are subject to inherent uncertainty. The model itself simplifies complex physical systems into a range of algorithms. In addition, local microclimatic conditions may affect the concentrations of pollutants that ADMS roads do not consider. Right, so the data projections we have here, basically they're using some of that traffic data that we covered in a previous video. If you've not checked that one out, please do. And they're looking at both the baseline of 2023, the peak construction scenario 2029, as well as operational. Background air pollution background air pollution. In the absence of the projection of background NO2, PM10 and PM2.5 pollution to 2051, data for the latest available year of 2040 has been used. Therefore, the background air pollution concentrations don't account for potential changes in transport, industrial, agriculture or transboundary pollution sources beyond 2040. The NH3 and NDEP. For NH3 and NDEP, the Joint Nature Conservation Committee's nitrogen futures business as usual scenario has been assumed as the cautious worst case in order to provide a robust assessment of likely significant effects, which means the background NH3 progressively increases due to the expansion of intensive agriculture and, as a consequence, progressive reduction in background NDEP is diminished. So here we've got that they validated and verified the model as well, using some pretty technical methods, which these people get paid probably quite a lot of money to understand. But now let's jump to the summary of the likely significant effects and proposed mitigation. We've got a table here that highlights the significant effects relating to air quality with the mitigation measures proposed. So, receptor, residential properties in Kempston Hardwick on Manor Road. Description of effect, loss of immunity due to surface soiling due to construction dust. So basically lots of dust emissions. Major or moderate adverse effect. Additional mitigation measures to minimise the risk of dust impacts are set out in Appendix 2.3 OCEMP. Measures to mitigate dust emissions are required for site management, monitoring, preparation and maintenance of the site, operating vehicles, machinery and sustainable travel, general operations, earthworks construction and track out. So after those mitigations, the residual effect will be minor, negligible adverse, which is not significant. Now that is the only significant impact with the mitigations. So after the mitigations have been put in place for that significant impact to Manor Road and Kempston Hardwick, it ends up being a not significant or a negligible adverse effect. Let's move on to our next document, which is Chapter 9, Noise and Vibration. We again have the contents. We have assumptions, engagement, methodology, baseline conditions, all the rest of it. We will do what we normally do, and we will actually jump to here We'll jump to 9.7, which is potential mitigation during operational phase. Now, rather than relying on and committing to specific mitigation measures, 3 primary measures are proposed to control noise from the operation of the proposed development. So this is when the resort is operational from 2031 and beyond. The compliance with the core zone noise limit set out in section 9.4. Let's jump to that, which is 9.4. Wow, we got lots here. A core zone. So we're looking at 80 decibels. This broadband noise is sort of like the full spectrum, and low frequency noise, that kind of rumbling noise that you might get. So we can see here that we've got, here we go, broadband noise limits similar to those established for other universal parks, namely EPIC, which is 60 decibels daytime, 55 decibels nighttime. Japan, 60 to 65 daytime, 55 nighttime. So those are the sort of parameters which they're looking to keep within. We've got a few maps here, which would be quite interesting. So these are where we've had some receptors. So we've had some here, Broadmead Road, some here just on the edge of Stuartby there, one here on Manor Road, where we've got the houses at the moment, one on a corner here as the dogleg of Manor Road exists at the moment, just at the roundabout there on Bedford Road, just at the end of Manor Road, and one here on the edge of Wixham's. So interesting that. We now know where they're doing their measurements from. So let's scoot back down. Right, so the mitigation measures. Embedded mitigation. Speaker and PA systems, directional placement to avoid projecting into the community. So basically everything's going to be fired inside from the outside in. Use of buildings around the park to act as noise barriers. Event stages strategically placed to direct sound away from sensitive areas, and significant noise generating attractions and events will have predictive noise assessment completed to mitigate noise levels. Optional mitigation. Here's something that's interesting to us geeky types. So when it comes to roller coasters, they'll be looking at damping of roller coaster beams and rails to reduce structure radiated noise. So in essence, that is like, so when Nemesis at Alton Towers first opened, the track was hollow, which gave it this very particular sound, a roar, if you like. Subsequently, B&M roller coasters, like Nemesis, have been filled in with sand to absorb some of that vibration noise. So I imagine what they're talking about, that's what they're talking about here. Quieter roller coaster support beam design, limiting high sections of roller coasters, increasing dispatch intervals for noisier attractions during evening hours, roller coasters designed to project screams and mechanical noise into the park property, and limiting the routine, i.e. non-safety critical testing of roller coasters to daytime hours where possible. So basically, when they're testing rides, they're going to do it during the daytime where they can. In terms of noise barriers, there will be a park perimeter berm in selected areas. Now, what's a berm? A berm was first implemented at Disneyland in California, and it's effectively like a big embankment around the park. It serves a couple of purposes. It does deal with noise pollution, but what it also does is if you're outside the park, you can't see so much of the inside, but from when you're inside, it makes the whole situation more immersive because you can't see outside. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Temporary sound barriers located for special events. designing park features or design elements that could act as sound barriers, and strategically locating noisiest sources to optimize sound levels. So the noisiest things will be furthest away from those sound receptors that we saw earlier. Operation controls, noise hotline for the community to call. Nice, that's good. Active community engagement to ensure the community is aware of special events that may increase park hours or generate incremental noise. Again, that's good. We've seen that Universal have been very keen to engage with the local community. This is a continuation of that. Limiting noisier nighttime activities and noise monitoring during special events for active compliance in the community. So they're going to be proactive about this, which is really good. Specific examples. This section provides specific examples of noise barrier designs utilised at existing Universal theme parks and which may be employed within the site if required. Physical barriers are highly effective at mitigating ground level noise. Operational back of house service areas are typically isolated with solid fencing to minimise visual sightlines of workers' activities and noise generated around those activities. Other barriers include the park perimeter berm, which is an earthen berm, as I mentioned earlier, with fencing and planting, solid fencing, temporary sound barriers, park features such as faux building facade walls and scenic trompe l'oeil. Oh, hello. We're going to have to dip into Google here, guys. What is a scene? I'm struggling even with that. I did my French GCSE. So it's trompe l'oeil is an artistic term used for the highly realistic optical illusion of three-dimensional space and objects on a two-dimensional surface. So effectively, that's that kind of, you're looking at a 2D object, but it looks 3D, partly because of perspective and force perspective, things like that. So very interesting stuff. Use of buildings around the park to act as noise barriers. Now, we obviously know as well there's going to be a utility compound that's going to be set over towards Manor Road in the lake zone, but it's going to be located as far from Manor Road properties as practicable. Where feasible, we're going to locate ERC buildings that generate relatively low levels of noise between the utility compound and houses on Manor Road, and locate service yards to the north of warehouses to maximise screening opportunities. Locate the noisiest chiller units at ground level and to the north of the energy centre, using this building to screen properties on Manor Road, and where feasible, locate ventilation louvres on north-facing facades of the energy centre. So there is going to be an energy generation plant which will keep the resort running in case of energy dips, power cuts. Demonstration of compliance with core zone noise limits. In order to demonstrate compliance with core zone noise limits set out in section 1.5, a combination of noise modelling and monitoring is proposed. Full details are provided in appendix 9.5, demonstration of compliance with operational phase noise limits. We'll get to that in volume 3. The cumulative effects have been addressed in the findings presented in table 919, with committed development accounted for in the traffic data that have been used in the operational road traffic noise assessment. And we've covered that off in a previous video. Right, here we go. We have a summary of likely significant effects and proposed mitigation. Construction phase, there'll be some noise, vibration. So the principal contractor will employ BPM to limit construction noise. There still will be a moderate to major adverse effect. Now, also within the construction phase, this is Kempston Hardwick Moated site, and this is vibration impacts. So mitigation measures may be required subject to the results of the piling risk assessment, which is probably what's going on right now on the site if you're following our construction updates. Still significant impact on that. Construction phase with road traffic noise, very limited in what can be done. Subcontractors will be encouraged to minimise heavy vehicle movements to the site by means of consolidating payload, so getting as much on each truck as possible. Delivery management service will also be system we also use to regulate the flow of heavy vehicles to and from the site and minimise the number of arrivals per hour. So that is pretty good. Summary of likely significant noise and vibration effects during the operational phase. So, operational road traffic, no residual significant effects. Road traffic noise, no residual significant effects. Operational noise. There will be significant effects to properties on Manor Road. And let's have a look. The Travellers site, significant. Residential community south of Wixham's will be significant. Residential community north of Stewart be significant operational at the maximum allowable level. So there's limited mitigation that can be done there apart from just doing their best to keep noise to a minimum. Utility compound will be dwellings on Manor Road, significant noise from the utility compound, but as long as you're over 350 metres from the utility compound, there'll be not a significant effect there. So basically, the noise impact assessment has been based on achieving a core zone noise limit of 60 decibels during the day and 55 decibels during the night, and associated low frequency noise limits for amplified music. This represents a cautious worst case and would include contributions from all core zone activities, including Halloween Horror Nights, holidays, and special events. When achieving these noise limits, a relatively small number of the properties centred on RCL01 properties in Manor Road, 4 of which are owned by Universal, are predicted to experience a residual major adverse effect which is significant. In the case of properties north of Stewartby, centred on RCL05 and RCL06, only a relatively small number, i.e. a single property at Broadmead Farm, and properties on the northern edge of Stewartby with northern aspects in line of sight of the development, are predicted to experience a residual moderate to major adverse effect, which is significant. A selection of properties located further south are predicted to experience a moderate adverse effect, which is significant, with the majority experiencing either a minor adverse or negligible effect, which is not significant. So effectively, we know which of those properties they are. Let's have a quick get the site up right now. Let's get Stewartby map. And we will switch. Oh, we're already there. Fantastic. So if we go over here, so the properties which will see significant impact will be these ones on Manor Road and the farmhouse here and these buildings here, which have line of sight to the development, which is here. As you move further away, moderate and then not significant here. All right. So that gives you a bit of an insight as to what the noise and air pollution effects and impacts will be on the local area. We're going to keep going through all of these documents until we tick them all off. We've had some really chunky ones over the last couple of episodes. If you are interested in getting really under the skin of this proposed development, then this really is your place. So you're welcome here. Please do subscribe. If you're interested, and why wouldn't you be? We do a fantastic live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. where we review all of the construction updates and we play some games. We have some fantastic new features which we're going to be rolling out over the next couple of weeks. So I can't wait to see you there. You take care and I'll see you again very soon.